So first I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I guess got a story that kind of leads me into what I do today. I was born in Louisiana like that person, and I lived in Texas like that person, but spent a lot of my life in the South, in the redneck South and in the New Orleans South. I was raised by pretty conservative parents, although they really supported my art journey. And I think they figured out from a young age that that was like my thing. No, I was good at it. So they sent me to art classes, and when I was, I guess in junior high, I started doing a public school program that you had to test into. And so I did that 7th through 12th grade. So art's always been there. I was a huge doodler. In fact, I brought a book of doodles to pass around just because it's kind of interesting. And this is
school,
no. These are recent doodles.
That would have been brave.
Recent doodles. Actually, you know what? I did try to dig that out, but it was, I think, buried under boxes in my studio because I recycle. I ship a lot of artwork out, and so I'm a big recycler, and I think it was buried. But this is recent from like, does anybody ever do the social media, like the Inktober? I don't know. I love to do it. You do that, I think. I'm sorry. I'm going to keep pointing at you because that's Lisa. And so anyway, art was always there. Again, conservative parents were going to pay for college, but not if I went to art school. So I went to TCU and majored in art education because that was, and I understand that totally now because I have an 18-year-old and I want her to be able to support herself when she graduates. Or when she goes to school and graduates. So, anyway, I was a painting minor, and during that time I had wonderful, the nice thing about TCU was it was not known for its art program, really, so the classes were really small, which was wonderful. So there was a lot of, especially in painting, there was a lot of individual attention, and we were, everybody was a working artist. We did a lot of things together in a small group. We would go over to our professors' houses. And so I just felt like at that point, being in Dallas and Fort Worth, I really kind of opened me up into the art world. And so when I was done, I got an art teaching job, and that was, if anybody's familiar with Dallas and Arlington, I was kind of teaching on that border between the two cities, and that's kind of a poorer area. It's less privileged, and I absolutely adored teaching at those schools because the kids didn't have a whole lot of support. They didn't have a whole lot of like after school activities, and so the ones that were interested in art would come early. They would stay late. They wanted to do all of the community projects that came our way. And so I absolutely loved that. But when I married my husband and moved down to Austin, I couldn't find a public school teaching job. And so, as many teachers do, I ended up in retail. So I did hardcore retail for about 10 years and didn't really do art unless somebody asked me to do something like, design a Christmas card, or I used to do flyers for the lady that I worked for, like mailers. So I really kind of abandoned it for about 10 years. My husband's job moved us to New Orleans area, which was completely different from where I grew up. I grew up in the north part of the state. And that was like, you can probably see it in my work. That was just like an explosion of color. There's music, you're just kind of immersed in culture. And we really, really did it then because we didn't have kids yet. And we could go do all the things and eat all the food and gain like 10 pounds. And, probably drank too much and all that. So anyway, had started a family, went through Katrina, Hurricane Katrina, and that was a very big deal, and that was kind of a pivotal time. my husband had also stopped drinking. We had a child in the hospital. Like, we had kind of all these life events right in a row. And my grandmother was a public health nurse in the parish where I grew up, and she was like my hero. And so after having gone through that, I was like, I am going to be a nurse now. Every hospital was a crisis hospital. They needed nurses, and they would actually pay for your school if you would sign a 2-year contract with them. So I went back to nursing school with toddlers and a husband that traveled, and I just was like, I don't even know how I had time to breathe, but I did it, and I was going to do it. And lo and behold, I woke up in the middle of the night one night, and I felt a lump in my breast. and I knew, and looking back on it, I knew right then, I was like, I have breast cancer. However, I had a doctor that misdiagnosed me for about 9 months, and so I kind of went through this roller coaster, and I was in school and juggling kids, and anyway, finally put on my big girl pants and went and got a second opinion, and within 3 days was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so my life at that moment just like did a 180, and everything changed. And if you've been through any kind of, life event like that, you know what I'm talking about. So at that point, I had, surgeries. It's funny, when you have cancer, sometimes you're not sick until you start having treatment and the surgeries and all the things. And then suddenly you're just sick. And I was sick for 2 years. I had quit school because it was just it wasn't working. So when it first happened, I would have been like a really good ER nurse, because I can deal with the stuff when it comes my way at the beginning. But then like 3 to 6 months later, I just completely crumbled. Like, I could not even tie my shoes. And that was the point when I realized that I was gonna have to change some things. And I started going to therapy. I was having like bad anxiety. I was worried about recurrence, as a lot of people do when they kind of get through the initial part of it, and they realize that they're not going to die next month, but like maybe I'll die in 5 years, or maybe I'll die in 10 years, and then all these things are going through your head, and you need help. So I got some help, and if you've ever also been through something like that, if you're lucky enough, you kind of get this special permission to do some things, like to help you heal, like paint, like go on long walks or whatever. And I was very, very supported, and I was very lucky that I was supported. And so while I was in therapy, my therapist suggested, we got to know each other, and he said, well, why don't you start painting again? That's what you love to do. And so at that point, I had a couple of years earlier kind of stumbled into this art class that I went to a little bit where I lived. The teacher's name was Dolores Alton. She was a local artist. She had a beautiful home. There was this sort of horse country that I never even knew was in this part of Louisiana, in southeast Louisiana. And she lived out there, and it was a gorgeous drive. It took about 30 minutes to get out there. And she had been to, is anybody familiar, and I don't even know if I say it right, with a Salem in Big Sur? Anybody know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
yes.
Excellent.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
they teach all kinds of amazing. I've never been out there, but she would go for these 3-week intensive process painting classes. Some people call it intuitive painting. Some people call it, the lady who kind of started it is a French woman named Michelle Cassou. And she is, this woman that I taught from had gone to Michelle's intense, like 3-week retreats in Big Sur. And she came back and sort of based her class loosely on that. And so, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it in a minute, but what it is painting for the crux of it is it's painting for process and not product. And that's exactly when my therapist said you need to start painting again, I thought that's what I need to do. And so I started Googling, like I knew Dolores had developed Alzheimer's and had moved out of the state. And so I started Googling to see if there was somebody I could find that was local. And I ended up finding a woman named Sherry Ray in Houston. And I also wanted to get out of town, so it worked out really great that I could leave. I had permission. Giving myself permission, and my husband's like, get out of here, go do your thing. And so I went to a 5-day retreat, and that totally, that retreat just put me where I am today. It was amazing. I've been back several times. I actually did I did one on Zoom last year, which was kind of really cool because I'd been to her studio in Houston so many times. And then suddenly being in my own studio was very, very interesting. And so I'll tell you a little bit about some of the, so like I said, it's called, and I need to use my notes because I don't want to forget to say anything. There's some really important, it's hard to explain to me, but it's a very meditative process. When someone like Sherry facilitates these retreats, there's never any judgment. You never have critiques. There's usually, I don't know, between maybe 8 and 12 people, the ones that I've been to. There's not even really a goal in mind. It is literally when you start out, it sounds kind of willy-nilly and kind of, I don't know. I've had people go, what in the world are you talking about? But it's actually, the way that she does it is she has tempera paint in the middle of the room. She has paper on the walls. They don't want you to have any sort of attachment to what you're doing because you're not creating a masterpiece. You're just painting for the process of painting. There's no, like I said, there's no goal in mind. It doesn't matter what the outcome is. And so you will literally start, she'll say, let your brush pick a color. And then she actually wants you to physically walk to the wall and walk back and forth. She won't even let you have in the beginning a palette with paint on it because I know what Phil's like, no, I mean something, I'm telling you it's something. It is, and people are like, what, I can't do this. And sometimes there will be people that have painted their whole lives and they're professional, and then you'll have, somebody that's never picked up a brush. We have had writers, we've had, company executives, but it's really, it's something that can really get rid of a creative block. Anyway, I'm not going to go on and on about it. And if anybody wants to know more about it, I can talk to you in private, but I cannot say enough about this process. And so what I do today, well, I guess I'll go back to, once I started doing that, I started gaining confidence in myself and what came out of my depths of whatever onto the canvas or the board or whatever. And so during that time, I had a friend, and looking back on it, she was probably seeing that I was crumbling and dying, and she was probably trying to help me. But she's opened a store, and she said, why don't I put some of your art in my store? And at the time, I was doing the process painting, but I was also cutting up old fence boards and kind of doing these fun, she had a gift store, so I was doing some kind of fun, I like doing these women that were, some people call them saints, but they weren't really religious saints. I don't know what they were, but very colorful and fun, and they put crowns on them, and they were just happy. People bought them, and so I was happy, and she was happy, and so anyway, I know. So so that happened. Well, then I had a friend who got in touch with me and said, I want you to paint my house. And I said, well, I will paint your house, but it has to be in my style. I'm not going to paint a realistic painting of your house. And she said, no, that's what I want. And I brought a couple of these to kind of show you, because I've been doing this now for like 10 years. Can pass those around. So this is a very important part of what I still do today. And so this first painting, she had this beautiful home on the Mandeville lakefront on Lake Pontchartrain in Louisiana. And her house ended up in a parade of homes, event. And so the Times-Picayune newspaper came and took, whoever the photographer was, kind of honed in on this painting in her house, and ended up in the newspaper in New Orleans. And it was just kind of a lucky thing. And people started calling me. And by this time I had enough confidence to say, I will do this, but you have to know what you're getting into. This is non-traditional. This is fun. This is funky and quirky. And I will paint. It turned into families, and I was like, I've now curated this nice little paragraph that I send to people so that they know that if they want a traditional family portrait, they need to go find somebody else. So I still do this. I take about 3 or 4 commissions a month, which sounds like a lot, but usually somebody drops out, so it works out. Anyway, so that over 10 years has gotten, can get a little mechanical, as anybody who paints or does anything like that knows. And so when we moved here about 6 years ago, and I think I had a nice little, and I still do have a nice little customer base in Louisiana and Texas, but it's sort of, I didn't take commissions for a while. I was getting settled. And during that time, I also, when we moved here, I do these in acrylics, and the acrylics were just drying so fast. I was like, I don't know what to do with myself. This is crazy. And so I think that's what kind of prompted me to get back into oils, because I thought, I'm gonna have to deal with this, but I really like the paints to be wet. And so I started playing around with oils again, which is what all of these pieces are. And I was kind of wanting to branch out into using some different media. And I stumbled across Tish Reed's class at Cottonwood about cold wax. I had heard about cold wax. I kind of looked into it in caustics, but the truth is I'm lazy and I'm cheap and I can't. I just can't. I will not. And so learned how to use cold wax, which for those of y'all who know about it, it's literally cold wax. And the way that Tish has you do it is mixing about a 50-50 consistency with your oil paints. And so I kind of started off doing the full complete pieces with that 50-50, but the truth of the matter is I really like things to be sort of very, very vibrant, and it's not quite vibrant enough for me. And so what I do is but it works out, because what I do is I start off with a black background on the board. I love using oil on board. Like the ones that I do with the families, I do on canvas with acrylic. But oil to me, I love the way it just feels when I don't know. I don't have words to describe all of this stuff. But anyway, I start off with black, and then I usually I brought all my tools here. This is a wonderful tool if you're getting into oil and cold wax, but Catalyst, I don't even know what it's called. Catalyst puts this out, and they put out several things. If you want to spend a little bit of money. Now, these are $1 at the dollar store, so you can do that too. Have a little bit of both. We all know that those of you that are artists, we know that, the dollar store and the dollar aisle The clearance aisle is wonderful, but this tool is great and worth however much it costs. But after I use the black gesso, I like to do a 50-50, either white or like an off-white or a lighter color. And I just kind of push the paint around. I don't really have anything in mind, but the reason I do that for 2 reasons. I like the kind of washiness and kind of the depth that it creates on its own and very easily, because like I said, I'm lazy and I want to create the depth quickly because I want to like just start painting and scratching into it more than I want to create depth. So I will start off with that 50-50 combination, but then as the painting progresses, I do end up using more oil and less cold wax, and I think it's probably evident on most of these. But what I love to do is also draw and doodle, as you can see, and so I use all kinds of little tools to scratch back into it. That's why I like starting with the black. This is my favorite tool. Where is it? This is actually a clay tool that I've somehow held on to for about 25 years, and it is the best. It's got 2 different size points, and I love drawing back into it. And I was telling somebody earlier, I actually have used quite a bit of restraint with these because I can draw dang long with this little thing. And so anyway, that's kind of how that's what I'm doing these days. This particular show is really so how these pieces came to be. I've never really done florals like this before, but what happened was had my 10-year cancer anniversary. I can't believe I'm saying that word. About not 10 years. That'd be weird. About 2 years ago. And I wanted to celebrate it. And I know we've got a couple of men here, but I know you very well. You're fine. But I had some parts removed. So I have like a blank slate here that was ripe and ready for a tattoo. And so I spent a lot of time. I knew I wanted to do something that was very feminine and floral. Going through all of that, I lost all of my lady parts, and so it was kind of a celebration of how far I've come and how I sort of reclaimed my femininity, and I did end up getting that tattoo, but looking through all of these tattoo artist images of these floral like one-liner tattoos is really what I ended up getting, what I absolutely love. I just was itching to recreate some things myself, and so I started kind of drawing, and I don't draw, like I don't look at a picture. I just like to sort of, that's what the process painting has done for me. I just wanted to come straight out of my head, my idea of a flower. So I can't really tell you if these are specific types of flowers, but that was sort of the inspiration for all of these, and it kind of morphs into some more stylized looking floral ideas, I guess. But let's see what else I was going to say about all this. But yeah, so that is what this is, and I guess the in closing about these pieces is I'm just so excited to see, like I feel like I'm just at the beginning of what's gonna happen with all this. Like I just cannot wait. I could paint all day every day and like let my children starve and all that kind of stuff. So I'm super excited.